there's all these stories about, guys over in Macedonia who are running these fake news sites.
Number 24 is content farms in Macedonia.
Бидејќи ако се направи грешка, таа ќе биде кобна. Нема враќање назад.
So Europe need to remain more sexy lady in the world.
Ајде, мајката!
Господа ја чува Македонија и низините граѓани.
Yes, now I don't have anything planned to say, so...
Didn't have time to write an intro?
No, I didn't. Well, I didn't. Yeah, and I didn't bring anything with me. So, let's just, as James Lilac says, let's just have ourselves a podcast.
Yep.
So, and we'll discuss all this and more on this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of Vodno Mountain in Skopje, Macedonia.
And this is Cvetin and my dog Cody, also at the foot of Vodno Mountain in Skopje.
Yes, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
We are recording this, episode 179 of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. Today is the 5th of, not November, I almost said the 5th of November. It's the 5th of September. 2 months until the U.S. presidential elections on the 5th of November. So remember the 5th of November. The treason and gunpowder plot, but that's a different country. That's the Guy Fawkes incident. So
I don't think you'll escape gunpowder plots until the 5th.
Yeah. So my one of my 2 annual visits to Macedonia, right around Independence Day. Cvetin, I was in the past couple of podcasts. I said Independence Day with the new government is going to be lit. But I don't think so. Actually, I thought I'd see billboards around towns saying, preparing for Independence Day and whatnot, but nada.
Yeah, you're right. It's not really a big... maybe it's early. They're still doing their, housekeeping. You noticed we have a new fence around the old new fence around
the old new
government.
fence, exactly.
So
yes.
This is the excuse they would give. Like, we're starting with basics, like the doors and the handles have been removed, and
yes,
we have to put them back in. And but yeah, you're right. We had Ilinden, so they did one celebration already. They could have done more, maybe for another, but for the 8th of September. But
yeah, it's. Anyway, I'm sure it'll be well celebrated by the government. There'll be some sort of an official event. I haven't heard or seen anything yet, and by citizens throughout and abroad as well. So I know UMD is organizing something in New York City at the UN.
At the UN in the UN?
Yeah, the UN.
Cool.
Yeah, a flag raising ceremony, I believe, for Sunday, the 8th of September, which is Independence Day, 33rd. So.
Yep.
As a modern day nation state. So.
Yeah, we're getting old. We should settle down.
Well, Macedonia is older than some countries. Again, as a modern day nation state, Macedonia is very old as a place, a people, a region, an empire. But as a modern day nation state, it's older than some countries. And 33 years is not insignificant. So it's taken a while to get to this place with the fits and starts of the various governments, and now there's a new opportunity for hopefully things to get better. I'm kind of on this trip. I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse and see what my friends and family think about the new government and how it's doing. And as you said, it's only been 2 months now since they've been in place. So they're trying to get the basics. And, some foreign investments are starting to come in. Relationship with other nation states, the region, etc. Have been good. So I think so far so good.
No, they've been great.
Okay.
Our relations with our neighbors are excellent.
Yes, but
we only have Hungary in our corner. But yeah, this is the 4th relaunch of the country. So one was the
4. This is Macedonia 4.0.
Yeah, 3rd relaunch after the first hard launch of the beta version in '91, the independence, and then quickly, quashed enthusiasm under the left with shutting down factories and agreeing to the initial round of Greek demands by the left. The national humiliations of the changing of the flag and the improvised name, interim name. Then the first relaunch was under Ljubče Georgievski, again quashed by the Albanian attacks and the leftist betrayal and the internationalist betrayal and the toppling of the Georgievski government and making Macedonia not a Macedonian country but something in between, like with the Ohrid Treaty, making it like semi-Macedonian, semi-Albanian, semi-all or none of the above country. So the second relaunch was under Gruevski, of course, and it was maybe the biggest, the longest.
That was almost 10 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was 10 years. So, yeah.
This was when we built the political machine in Vomero and the economic machine in the country, and set the foreign policy priorities of putting independence first, sovereignty first, accepting international and neighborly demands second. But this was the reason why this government was attacked very brutally. And now this is the third relaunch under Vomero. And okay, I mean, I equate Vomero coming to power with relaunching the country, but I think that's it. I mean, under SDSM, they don't really care much about the Macedonian country. They don't care much about the economy. They just do what they're told from above, and more recently from not even above, but from the same level, like neighboring countries which were our peers, or even we consider them lesser than. And now SDSM would take orders even from Albania, for example, which cost them dearly politically, but it's the fact. So third relaunch of the country.
Macedonia 3.0. Okay, yes. So, well, yeah, and the government doesn't have to do much to improve the situation, considering that it was such a had it bottomed out, especially with half the ministries or more belonging to the DUI, basically, the ethnic Albanian parties. So, anyway, so we'll see. So, a happy Independence Day to everyone.
Hear, hear.
And I don't want to say onward and upward because that's what Nikola Dimitrov always says, and I can't stand him. So just keep moving forward. So
to infinity and beyond.
Or actually, as Churchill would say, keep buggering on.
No, Churchill. That's controversial. We're not having that debate.
But we can say keep buggering on. So
in our case, Churchill destroyed my then hometown of Doiran and Bitola and Solun. He burned Solun.
Yeah.
For a stupid adventure, he could have kept fighting the Germans in Belgium and in France. This was intended not start the Macedonian front and mess things up here so badly. And then, was he prime minister when the UK bombed? No, the Macedonians in
no, he became prime minister in May of 1940. So
no, but then Anthony Eden was, I guess, prime minister when the IRF bombed the Macedonian soldiers in Greece.
What year was that?
Well, that was 46, 47. So yeah, Churchill was out by then.
Yeah, Churchill was out. Churchill was out by 45, summer of 45. So, and then he came back again in 50.
We blame him. There's a book about this that he delivered the Yugoslav partisan movement, the communists, that he anointed them as. He didn't fight to keep the royal regime in Yugoslavia,
right?
But then actually, one of the talks is that the intelligence service was infiltrated by leftists, and then they persuaded London that the partisans are the good guys and the royalists are the bad guys. That they're collaborating with the Germans. So that's another thing we generally blame him for, but.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because actually I just finished a 1,000-page biography of Churchill by Sir Andrew Roberts. It was fascinating. Just a really, whatever you think of the man, he lived to age 90.
Yeah.
He actually predicted the day that he would die, January 24.
Really?
Yeah, 1965. And he was just, an amazingly accomplished. He was primarily a writer, actually.
Yeah.
So he wrote 6 million words, no, more than that. I can't remember what it was, but millions of words, books, articles, things like that.
And the English-speaking peoples, that was the main, right?
Well, he wrote so many of them, especially about the Second World War.
Okay, of course, that was like his diary.
Yeah.
The diary in,
and he was a bit of a showman. Not unlike the past president and maybe future president Donald Trump. But he was certainly more honest and whatnot. But it's interesting when you talk about Churchill, because my other country I go to is Estonia, and so my Estonian friends have a nuanced, shall we call it, nuanced view of Churchill as the Macedonians do, because for the simple reason that the Soviets were allowed to retain the Baltic states.
Okay, but they were very deep inside. Okay.
No, they weren't. They were all independent. See, the Baltics were all independent of the Russian Empire.
Okay, but the Russians got to Berlin. I mean, they're deep in the hinterland. I mean, there's no chance that they would, except maybe for with the naval deployment.
But for the Baltics, the reason they have a nuanced view of Churchill is because they were all independent as of 1918. They fought and won their independence against what was the Russian Empire at that time. And then, of course, there was the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact between Hitler and Stalin that allowed the Soviets to invade, and then the Germans came in, and then the Soviets came in, and then they never left. Yeah. And so the Balts, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, all blamed Churchill for not having, and not just Churchill, of course, but the Western leadership as well that won World War II, for not telling the Soviets, you've got to get out of the Baltics and Poland, etc.
I mean, they're maritime countries. He himself, landed in Athens with a brigade when the Germans withdrew. So, maybe they're thinking that he could have done the same and landed with a cruiser in the Baltic Sea and bring back presidents.
Sorry?
What did they have before? Kings, presidents?
Who, the Estonians?
The Baltics.
Well, they were, before 1918, they were all part of the Russian Empire, so they were...
They didn't have they fought against the Soviet Union for independence, right?
No, the Russian Empire. This is 1918. So
when did they declare independence?
1918.
But then it was the USSR.
No, it was
18.
Well, it was the USSR.
They used the revolution to declare independence for a decade.
Exactly,
maybe?
But the independence movements, like so many independence movements around the world, or especially in Europe, began in the 1870s.
Yeah, sure.
And with students, of course. So it's kind of interesting that the Estonian flag, and here we are in the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast talking about Estonia, but it's a country I happen to know quite a bit about.
Well-structured podcast, very focused on the issues.
But the flag was created by basically the Students' Union of Tartu University, which is the second largest, and some say the most important city in Estonia. Tallinn is the capital. But and that was in the 1870s, I think, that they designed the flag, the tricolor, blue, black, and white. But it was unveiled to the Estonian population in a little town called Otepää, which I've been to many times. A beautiful little place, because the Russian Empire at the time, they would have cracked down on the students if they had done it in Tartu, which was a bigger city and whatnot. So, but anyway, these independence movements kind of started bubbling up in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, etc. Not just in the Baltics, but everywhere. I mean, even we can get back to Macedonia now and talking about how it was. Vomero was created in 1893, right? So. This idea of an independent Macedonian state free from the Ottoman Empire was also kind of bubbling up around that time. And of course, then we have Linden, etc. But then it took another, 60 years, 70 years to actually get independence. So
something resembling
independence, right? Yeah, and now to your earlier point, we're on 3.0 for independence. So, but let's talk about. So let's talk about good things going on in Macedonia. And again, every time I'm here, I'm always looking for good things, good news stories, etc. I have a little shop called Wineberry that I always go to. It features mostly Macedonian wines that you've never heard of. And so there are now 200 wineries in Macedonia, up from, I mean, when I got here in 1996, I think the only one was Tikvesh.
Yeah, sure.
There may have been some, and it's always been the biggest, et cetera, and even Tikvesh, of course, has, over the past almost 30 years, has just really developed, invested in itself. Svetojanevski has plowed money back into it to create better wines. So, whereas wines from Macedonia used to go in bulk to Slovenia, they'd repackage them and sell them under a Slovenian label. Now Macedonia is producing some of the most fantastic wines I've ever had. Last night I was at the Kamnik winery for their 20-year celebration. If I sound rough, I was overserved, as we say, with the euphemism. But it was a really fantastic
the food is
event.
tiny, but the drinks are not.
Exactly. Well, the drinks flowed freely. That was good food, actually, too. Good heavy hors d'oeuvres. But, Kamnik is producing some absolutely outstanding wines. Macedonian wines are winning awards around the world, certainly, especially in Europe. Again, I said 200 wineries, but there's probably about a quarter of that, 50, that have a website or a Facebook page, so you can actually learn about them. But Wineberry, this little wine shop I have, I was there. Let's see, I got in last Friday. I think I showed up on Saturday at Wineberry just to start tasting wines, and then I was there a couple of nights ago, and she had two new wines, a Chardonnay and a Timianica, from a winery called. Oh dear, I've forgotten the name. I'm gonna have to look at it on my phone. Fill in the airspace while I.
Yes, so we are discussing.
Hang on, let's see. Where is that?
No, but truly, we are becoming like I think global rank, like a significant producer. I don't think. I'm not sure if it's considered in bulk, in volume, or in currency.
Right.
But I think we are now being considered like a significant exporter, producer of wines.
I think, Macedonia is definitely in the top 20 countries around the world in terms of the wine.
Yeah.
The amount of wine it produces. Okay. Monteko, Monteko, yeah. So I had a Chardonnay and a Timianica, but here's the thing about this Monteko, and it was lovely. You know where it's from? Kratovo.
Aha, okay.
Kratovo, a city you've never been to, and I have many times, and I still want to get you to come to. Yeah. I'm an influencer, so I'm going to influence you to go to Kratovo and try Monteko wines. Coming. Yeah. But I would never consider Kratovo. I don't know where they're getting their grapes from.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, it's a volcanic, hilly terrain, so even though I've never been. But recently one of the Stip wineries is what was its name? The big one near Stip is something. They were applying to buy. No. They were applying to buy the failed Greek ouzo producer Santalia, I think. Yeah. Oh. And then
I didn't know
a bunch of Greeks. Well, I'm guessing they'll just move the brand under a new ownership. And a Macedonian company was big enough to be a competitor. And then there were reports that a bunch of other Greek companies teamed up to stop this travesty from happening. Like they can purchase businesses in Macedonia all they want, but we can't
purchase theirs. Yes,
purchase.
I think that goes on in every country. It's a national pride on these things. So.
No, especially in Greece, and especially if it comes to Macedonians, But they're big enough. And Sveto, I remember I was dismayed when Sveto said, "I'm raising the price on the wines tremendously of the wines we used to have. Like this is the beginning of the renaissance of wine in Macedonia that we're going to improve quality. But first step will be, to make it clear to everybody that a bottle of wine will not continue to cost €2 and the wine will not be meant to be mixed with mineral water and into a spritzer."
Right.
And people were dismayed. I remember I was dismayed, like what's happening here? But it turned out to be, I remember you were defending the decision, and obviously
to raise prices.
Turned to be I don't think I'm not sure, did he raise prices on what on the Tega and the Smederevka, which were basically the two wines we had at the time, and that then also began to introduce new brands for an even higher price, but a better quality, better marketing.
If you want to drink good wine, you're going to have to pay for it. That's just the way it is. So, and I think, despite everybody's complaint here about the economy, everybody around the world complains about the economy in every country. That's
I
just
don't know what's the deal.
but yeah, people are buying, and there's enough of a population here in Skopje, at least, that can afford the more expensive wines. And when I say expensive, I say that's 750 to 1,500 dinars, which, 750 dinars is what's that? That's 14. That's 15 bucks. 12. A little less than 14 bucks. So, that's that's when I buy wine, back home, I'm looking at the $10 to $15 range anyway. So, because that's all my palate understands. You put a $300 bottle of wine in front of me, and I'll enjoy it, but I don't think my palate could discern between a $30 and a $300 bottle of wine.
Sure.
But I was actually in the grocery store the other day and noticed that Tugazig is 340 dinars, which is up from even a couple of years ago it was only like 250. So, which is still, and it's a decent Vranets. So, but yeah, so the more and more wineries are producing better and better wines. People are being exposed to them, drinking them. Another one that I didn't know about. That's what I like about going to Wineberry. Every time I come here, she's always got Jadranka, the proprietress, hostess, always has new wines from new wineries. Dane Hermes is a 2023 is when they open their doors, and I had a rosé Olja. O-L-J-A is the daughter of the owner. Rosé, which was just fantastic. Notes of strawberry and cream, and go out and get some, folks. And I think I had their Chardonnay as well, or no, their Timianica. But I didn't try the reds yet. So it's summer. I'm drinking more whites and rosés than reds these days.
With the fish.
Well, I can't eat fish.
Oh, yeah. One of your allergies.
Exactly. So going back to what we started the wine conversation, good news in Macedonia. And the winery, and she's also, Jadranka at Wineberry is starting a new program. She's been working with the Swiss embassy. We can give kudos to the Swiss for investing in a project like this, where it'll be a proper website and wine tours that you can organize, and you can go to the website and you can choose 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, all the way up to 5 days. It's up to, I think she's got 7 wineries so far, and you get your fixed price, and it includes everything: the transportation, the overnights, the wine, the lunches, the dinners, everything else. And it'll be very interesting to see. This is something I've really wanted to see created here for a very long time, and it's finally happening. And I hope that people will take advantage. She said the first tour is already booked up, so I'm hoping that, because this is what wine enthusiasts want, is they want to discover new things, and they're always looking around the world to and these are the people with disposable income. They will come here, they'll fly here, they'll stay at the Marriott or the Hilton. They will book one of these wine tours, which is not terribly expensive. It's not cheap. I mean, your average citizen of Berovo is not going to be signing up for it. But these people with disposable income, and that money all stays here. So this is good. This is necessary for the tourism industry.
That's what we can develop now in the 3.0, 4.0 economic program, like the previous reinvention of Macedonia. It was manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, trying to bring down the unemployment rate from maybe 20 or 17%, whatever it was, down to maybe we're trying to bring it down to 17. I forget now.
It was in the upper 20s, I believe. Now it's, I don't know.
17 was actually good. I remember we were laughing at the Greeks when they hit 17, and we surpassed them for a while during their meltdown. So that was the big one. Now nobody's even talking about trying to bring in big blue-collar manufacturing. It would be impossible. We're talking about like this value-added stuff like tourism, IT, knowledge economy, because that's what we have people for. I mean, a lot have emigrated, and those who stay would prefer an office job, and they're coming to smaller cities with call centers and outsourcing service jobs, not necessarily for IT people, even for normies, just
Normies.
who speak English or
Right.
German.
Yeah.
And then, the energy manufacturing will be in the labor, not labor intensive energy fields like solar, wind, and hydro, not in mining and burning coal. So
Right.
these are the plans that.
Yeah. Well, and then, Greta aside, the whole idea of SMR, small modular reactors, it's maybe too early now for that, but those are coming, around the world, small nuclear reactors that can power, if not entire villages, then, entire neighborhoods. So,
Well, we have an army range where the U.S. Army tests depleted uranium shells. So in Krivolak, we can put one there. No, I think realistically we'll hopefully build like a gas plant sometimes. And maybe continue digging for coal, which was badly. I mean, the previous government even had a policy of making Macedonia energy independent because the Greeks insisted. So now
make Macedonia independent, energy independent again.
Yeah. Because this is one of the pillars of the Gruevski sovereignist policy, because we produce kind of enough food for the country and kind of enough energy, and then we have room to grow in manufacturing, and what you're going to do with us, how are you going to pressure us?
Right.
And then like a few years into SDSM, we are stopping digging for coal and importing Albanian coal through Greece to make us double dependent on our lovely neighbors. And then the Ukraine war and the energy prices skyrocket, and it was crap.
Yeah.
But now we would probably try to dig at realistic levels, and then maybe build a gas plant. But who's to supply us now with Russia? Forbidden as a supplier, or maybe just we have to go through several hands, like they export to Ukraine to Hungary to Serbia, and then we're
Yeah.
Or maybe the Americans get serious about this little possession of theirs and build us that LNG port and provide gas at a realistic price. And, but that's unlikely to happen.
Yeah. What's happening now? The school year just started. Switching subjects slightly. In terms of, I know the last government was terrible, especially on things like getting textbooks.
I never understood that. It's very easy to do. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. So, how's the new government faring on that? And again, they've only had 2 months to really get started. But
no comparison with Vimar. I mean, they'll get stuff in order. They'll shout and fire and demote people. And I think SDSM gave the printing contract to an Albanian company, a Duri company. I think this was the problem. I'm sure the government paid and they never delivered. This is the maximum profit. Because who cares? I mean, it's not like who's going to investigate us, threaten us, charge us. We can do whatever we want. Now with Vimera, I think they supplied all textbooks other than something that was difficult to print at last moment, like English language. It's functional. It's not like the big disputes is right now is there going to be air conditioning in schools, which is now the fancier types of argument, because it's really hot. It's still hot.
It is. I'll tell you a quick digression. I'm from the desert, as you know. But just because I live in the desert doesn't mean I like being hot. I mean, I go from my air-conditioned house to my air-conditioned car to my air-conditioned gym, back to my air-conditioned car to my air-conditioned house, into my air-conditioned car to my air-conditioned office. And, we live in air conditioning.
Yeah.
So...
small bubbles.
What's that?
Small bubbles here.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, until it finally... I mean, Phoenix, the capital of Arizona, has just had recorded 100 days in a row with 40 plus. Wow. And often 47, 48. That's Phoenix. I don't live in Phoenix, fortunately. There's too many Californians there. But yeah. So anyway, If you're saying it's hot, everybody I've talked to on this trip so far, and I've only been here a few days, has said it's bloody hot.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It started getting humid like 10 years ago, and the summers But
air conditioning in schools.
But we're discussing like nicer things, like SDSM tried to do a protest of the teachers because the salaries there were like promised some increase by SDSM, or maybe it's written into law, I guess, and then VMRO is saying, hold on, we'll see what we can do about this, and then
Rebalance the budget.
SDSM, tried to organize a protest. Nobody came. I mean, they're completely spent. They're not coming back anytime soon, unless the U.S. intervenes heavily in the EU, and we have a new Bulgarian, a Greek diplomat as an EU ambassador. So,
I just started following him on X.
Yeah, the U.S. embassy is keeping a lower profile, but I'm sure they're biding their time. So we'll see what happens. And the big issue in the schools, obviously, was under SDSM, we were going to start learning history based on what neighboring countries say we should learn.
Right.
And this was why SDSM lost the elections. Now Mitskovsky is out saying that he's going to fire the members of the Historic Commission on the Macedonian side with Bulgaria. These guys were like completely, accepting whatever the Bulgarian side would want. What they would be told by the Dimitrov or Buer-Osmani foreign ministry to accept it, and they immediately would. Eventually the talks broke down because we got to topics which even SDSM supporters began to wince at, began to react to. I just saw this famous lady who was a meme on Twitter. Remember at the peak of these talks with Bulgaria and everything collapsing for SDSM, and a lady, but typical SDSM style voter, was asked in Skopje, like, tomorrow is, I think it was October 11th, the start of the uprising against Bulgaria, and what's tomorrow? Oh, it's the day of the national liberation struggle, the opening of the struggle. Yeah, and who are we fighting against? And she freezes, and you can see her, the gears turning in her head, like, can I say it? Can I say Bulgaria? And like this completely craven, like, SDSM supporter who built their careers on saying Bulgaria is bad, and then suddenly it's no longer politically opportune to say that, and she's now thinking, I can't say. And I just saw her like the other day. It was very, very, funny. And all this stuff that SDSM were accepting. Now Mitskovsky says he'll appoint a different set of historians to the team who will not be accepting, who will actually try to negotiate, I guess, with the Bulgarians. And this is the big, I think, education issue, which is now, because, the idea on the Greek and the Bulgarian side is that we introduce their narratives in our textbooks, and maybe in a number of decades, this is how you undermine the Macedonian nation, that it accepts that historically we've always been, there were ancient Macedonians who were Greeks, and then Bulgarians, and then...
That's how you undermine any nation. You start with the children. So, and you introduce foreign, weird, immoral subjects to the children in the educational system. Or in today's modern age, you tweak the algorithm on TikTok so that the children are only getting this, that, and the other, whereas the Chinese children on their TikTok version are only getting thoughts from
a person
chairman.
who lives in China recently told me that's not quite so. That their TikTok is pretty brutal as well. Yeah, it's pretty racy and degenerate, and just like ours.
Oh, good. That's fine. It destroys the Chinese Communist Party. So,
well. He was person who knows.
Okay. All right.
But it's not. Do we have textbooks? It's what is written in them.
Right.
More importantly, and this is now. Then there was like this argument with Greece. They shut down the Macedonian Language Center in Lirin, which I went there after it was opened. I couldn't find it. I tried online. I think SDSM were a little overselling their narrative that rights for Macedonians in Aegean Macedonia greatly improved because of the Prespa Treaty, because I couldn't find one person speaking on behalf of this center. And
interesting.
Pictures of, we have 10 people, we have 20, we have 100 people attending classes. Like, it was just, I think it was just like a narrative that they scored some major victory, and now that Vimera stopped using North Macedonia all the time, now Greeks are retaliating, of course, and that it's our fault again. This is what SDSM are saying. I think they're overselling it, but yeah, they through their courts they shut down the center to the extent that it existed and was actually active. There's some improvement with Bulgaria, and I told you a bunch of times it really pains me that we are having this dispute with them. I was absolutely dismayed when they decided to copy the Greek approach to us. But of course, I mean, they saw the identity collapsing, the country collapsing. So I mean, why wouldn't you? If you see your neighbor.
And plenty of people predicted that the Bulgarians would pull a Greek move. I mean, I think we said it. Well, we didn't have the podcast back then, but we've said ever since. I've been writing about this for 25 years. So, yeah, I mean, that was to be expected.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you see your neighbor like becoming a hoarder, losing it, maybe you'll say, listen, maybe for my safety as well as for his well-being, I should take over his house, and maybe I'll let him sleep in the attic. But take over his house is an important part. But I mean, yeah, if you see the neighbor collapsing, you're obviously going to start thinking. Right. But there was like now this big organization in the U.S., the MPO.
Oh yeah, I did see that news. Yeah.
Changing. They're also, when I share this thinking, dismayed of the dispute between the two nations, and they're now beginning to make approaches, like making statements toward reconciliation. They still, their basic position is still, and it has been for decades, that Macedonians are Bulgarians, but now they're opening to, we're not arguing about the identity. You have a Macedonian consciousness, and that's enough for me, and we'll clamp down on any disputes within the organization. So there might be like reasonable voices. We consider them more like a Bulgarian voice, so they might be like a reasonable interlocutor, maybe some kind of like a interlocutor between the two countries in the future, if they ever elect a government and we ever get to a point of discussing, negotiating sometimes.
Right. Yeah. That's they're based in Canada, I think, is their headquarters, or Indiana.
All over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have. I think the new president is from Canada, but is from Toronto. But I'm not sure they have like an actual office. They met in Michigan now, in Grand Rapids. I think they do different locations.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll try to find some people to talk to there.
Yes, indeed.
Because it's been bad for Bulgaria. I think by now they realize that the negative reaction in Macedonia was tremendous, even among SDSM people, let alone among sovereignist Vimera people. So
that's a good word, sovereigntist. It's nationalist is the quote unquote the dirty word that people throw around, but sovereigntist is. There's really no dispute about sovereignist means you're sovereign. You're a sovereign nation state, even if you do have interference from Calais in this case and other places like that. So, what else we got to talk about here? Like I said, I'm just here, to talk and to listen and to learn and to see what's going on. And
we talked about the weather. We talked about the government.
Talked about wine. So, So, what are your plans for Independence Day?
The barbecue.
Excellent. Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not sure.
Okay. Still out to barbecue?
I haven't barbecued a lot. Only this thingamajig which you brought me, which is you can kind of barbecue at home, cold smoking stuff. So you can this is out of desperation because I haven't grilled anything. Maybe since May.
Wow.
I'm living off my frozen reserves of,
my goodness. Okay.
of the first batch in the spring, and then it really got brutal in
just because it's been so hot in
July. I can't bear myself to go to the village. And,
okay. Are you going to go out there for Independence Day?
I'm not sure. It depends on the. It should get colder. What now after the weekend, and maybe we get back to some kind of normalcy. But I would have to. Have to get out of the city. I mean, the city was especially bad, like with all the concrete around. Yes. And, but everywhere people complained. We're not made for this.
Yeah, well, it's a 3-day weekend. Independence Day is Sunday, so Monday's a holiday. So people, I think, will start heading out tomorrow, Friday afternoon, and by Saturday morning the city will be empty. So that might actually lower the temperature.
Yeah,
hopefully. So I'll be out of town. I'll be visiting friends near Mavrovo for Independence Day, and so. It'll be a good one. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it may not be lit, but it will be enjoyable. It will be. We'll all celebrate.
I mean, Gruevski was also slow to begin with, but we need to see something being achieved.
Right.
Okay, Dui are being put back in their place. This is a good basis to for return of national pride and. Returning to where we were before, we need to do something about this DSM as well. I mean, they're a spent force at the moment, but the evil, the damage they did, we cannot allow this to happen again.
No.
So this needs to be something, but it will also depend a lot on the internationals. And if Gruevski was his first few years were under Bush, and you could tell that we're not immediately under attack by the embassy here, that we are given some room to breathe and develop and do what we can do with the country. Then Obama and, of course, the colored revolution. And it's going to depend a lot on is there going to be, if we want things to become lit, is there going to be a resurgence of conservative right-wing thinking and leadership in the world. And it's not us. Just look at the Brits are being arrested for, tweeting, can you please stop bringing people who are liable to stab our children? Maybe at a lower rate. Yeah. At a slightly lower rate.
Yeah.
Or, in France, they officially have a government, or they don't even have a coalition, but they had an election in which we had the Macedonian style coalition, like the urban, godless, post-national, post-identity leftists, or whatever you call them, liberals from the Macron party, and the far left and Islamists joining forces. It's literally SDSM and Dui coalition. And you had the French Vimera winning handsomely among the, as we call it here, like the winner among the Macedonians and the winner among the Albanians. So the winner among the French was obviously the French Vimera, and then they were easily brushed to the side, and their votes didn't matter. And you have a government, a majority in the parliament. It's not even a majority yet. They're running on inertia, made up of members of parliament who received the minority of the vote of the ethnic French, while the majority of the ethnic French voters are in the opposition. You see the German eastern states completely saying we're not even pretending that we give a crap what you say about us. This is not tenable anymore. And we'll see what happens with you guys soon. So
2 months, and then and as of right now, the polls are just neck and neck. It all comes down to 7 states.
All comes down to turnout.
All comes down to turnout, exactly. Yes, and in those 7 states. Don't necessarily believe the polls. Whatever you see, of course, the famous saying is the only poll that matters is the one on election day.
By then, the left has voted. Everybody on the left has voted 3 times already, including their dead relatives.
Exactly. So,
John McCain has voted for Kamala 3 times, and then his son a couple of times more.
Yes. So,
but imagine that cackles for 8 years.
Oh, well. Even 4 years is just too much.
It's going to be 8.
Right?
Actually, a friend of mine asked me the other day, said, what does it mean for America if Kamala wins? And I said, it will be difficult. And then he said, what does it mean for the rest of the world? And I said, it will be very difficult.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
And on that bright note.
Yes, on that bright note, we'll wrap up and
we keep trying to have a positive podcast.
Exactly.
One day it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, we're just going to wish everybody a very happy Macedonian Independence Day and
the glorious 8.
And keep buggering on. Good catching up with you, son.
You too, buddy. Take care.
You too.